I want to tell you a quick story about what happened in Paphos. So we've been away for 5 weeks over winter. While you was having chilly weather, we was having temperature went below 20 one day. So, it was very cold over there. It's freezing, this, that, and the other. But we had some friends coming over, so we hired a car. And I went to hire this car, and as we were picking it up on the Sunday, but there wasn't enough time to do the paperwork on the Sunday morning. So I went in on the Saturday morning to do all the paperwork. There's a lovely lady there, Alexandra. And as I sat down, noticed she's got this year's diary, but it's got symbol of the Christian fish on. So I thought, oh, hello, you got Christian fish. It's okay, it's fine. But then she promptly hid it. I went, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to embarrass you, and this and that. So we chatted, and she said, oh, while you're doing your paperwork, what are you doing here? I said, well, we're here helping out a church, and we're just going to have time out with our friends this week. So that was that. 8 days later, I went to take the car back on the Monday morning, and she was there, and I brought the car back, they went to check it over, everything was fine. And she said, oh, how are you getting on with the church? I said, oh, we're having a fantastic time. It's lovely, it really is. And I shared this with our Connect group, so Dave's smiling. And as I stood up to say bye and everything, she stood up with me. And I noticed she's got like a bag about so big, and it had Jesus on it, and all these other little sayings. And it's just like, hey, that is a great bag to have. That is a great bag to have. And she stood up and she said, and then she was walking me to the door, and then we said, how's church? I said, oh, church is fantastic. And we got outside. He said, which church is it? I said, oh, it's PCFI, Paphos Christian Fellowship International. And I said, it meets down the road. Just turn up there. Told her exactly where it is. I told her exactly the times and dates. And I said to her, oh, on Tuesday evening, we've got something that called Grace Chapel. Now, Grace Chapel it's a bit like when we have worship and word, that one of those Fridays, Wednesdays. But they have it every Tuesday. So I said, why didn't you come along on Tuesday? It lasts for about an hour. There's tea, coffees, a few songs, testimonies, prayers, this, that, the other, this, that. And so she's walking along with me, and it's just like, it's a God opportunity, isn't it? It's a God opportunity that I just took. And so I don't know if you do this, but when you're hiring a car, I just gave her a hug. I thought, how many people actually hug the car rental person? Hey, bless you. Hey, lovely to see you. This is this. And on the Tuesday morning, on the Tuesday evening at the Grace Chapel, I was slightly disappointed that she didn't come, but she's got family commitments. And but last Sunday, I got a text from Angela, who's one of the young leaders there. And she said, the text read, hey, Pastor Trevor, because that's what they call me over there. Hey, Pastor Trevor, the lady from the car rental came to church. And she said she was blessed, and she had a fantastic time. Because on the Tuesday previous, I'd said, look, to the people there, I said, look, we're going. We're leaving on Sunday, so I've got to leave her in your hands. And I said, I can't do it. I'm going to be 2,000 miles away. I've got to leave her in your hands. I said, somebody, not all of you, because you'll run out of cars. If everybody thinks you're going in to rent a car, it's just like mass on. Oh, no. I said, somebody just go in and just have just say hi, believe one of our pastors. We all believe Pastor Trevor's been and just had a word with you. But it's taking the little opportunities, and sometimes it's not just blurting it out. It's seeing what they've got, from a diary with a Christian fish on it to a little bag with Jesus on it and everything. And it's just like, it's an opportunity, isn't it? So I just wanted to encourage me that this year, you can just go through through the year, but look for things. God will give us little signs of saying, just say that to them. Just say hello to them. Just say, and profess your faith. Profess your faith. There is another story, and if I get time later, but I might tell you. But anyhow, there we go. So we're in the book of Ezra. This is going to be, if you've got your Bibles, or if you've got your smartphone, and you can get up to the book of Ezra. This is, somebody was like, where's the book of Ezra? Old Testament. Go straight to the Old Testament. It's fine. So it was all going so well for Ezra, wasn't it? It was all going so well. Last week, Estelle gave us an excellent background and a historical timeline, really, of the book of Ezra and where we are. And although it's called the book of Ezra, he only makes his first appearance in chapter 7. So it's just like, okay, and then what happened with first? But that was the timeline. So I'd recommend that if you wasn't here last week or you haven't seen it yet, just ask Estelle. She'll send it through to you. And it wasn't recording. No. So there you go. Notes are up on the church website, so you can just have a look at that. And it was I thought she did fantastic last week. So go back and look at that. So a couple of points from last week. Estelle looked at chapters 7 and 8. So Ezra had come up from Babylon. I mean, we learn this. Ezra's come up from Babylon, and they're going up to Jerusalem to restart work at the temple. He was a teacher well-versed in the law of Moses. I am sounding a bit echoey here. I don't know if it's me for a change. He was well-versed in the law of Moses, which the Lord, the God of Israel, had given. Ezra had devoted himself to the study of the laws. And the study of the law, the decrees and the laws of Israel. I mean, we went on Wednesday night in Connect Group. I led it on Wednesday night, and I said, let's go back to Deuteronomy and Leviticus, and I said, and just have a look at all the laws. God went, here's 10, and the Israelites went, no, here's another 600. Have them. But Ezra knew them. And I think it's just, wow, he was well-versed. He knew his stuff, didn't he? He was blessed. Reading in those 7 and 8, the king had granted him everything that he'd asked for. And because the king could see that the hand of the Lord was on Ezra. So he gave it. I mean, it was a fantastic amount of stuff, which, here we go. Ezra, he had enough supplies. 4 tons of silver and gold, 18 tons of wheat, 100 baths of wine. Now, my thinking just went, there's all these baths going down the thing, and it's just all this wine slushing around the place. But it wasn't that. It's only about 600 gallons of wine. So that was all right. And the same amount of olive oil and salt without limit. So he's blessed. He's got the law. He's blessed. He's got the king's provision. He's blessed. He's got men and families coming to go to Jerusalem with him. So he's got provisions. He's got supplies. And if I remember correctly, Estelle calculated that there's about 4,500 people in this, I'm going to say a caravan, in this caravan journeying for 4 months to get to Jerusalem. On the face of it, everything looked wonderful, didn't it? On the face. If you just think of that, what do you've got? The hand of God, provisions, men coming after you, families. Everything was just like, this is it. We're in. And then comes chapters 9 and 10. I'm going to read verse 1 of chapter 9. After these things have been done, so they've all got to Jerusalem. They're all doing the stuff in the temple. They're all doing this. So they're there. They've got the provisions and everything. They've got the gold and all the pots and pans. After these things had been done, the officials approached me and said, "The people of Israel and the priests and the Levites have not separated themselves from the peoples of the lands with their abominations, from the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, the Jebusites, the Ammonites, the Moabites, the Egyptians, and the Amorites, and all the other ites." Can you imagine what Ezra just went? Ah! What? You've got to be kidding. Verse 2. Nope. Sorry about this. But they have taken some of their daughters to be their wives. They've taken them to be wives for themselves and for their sons, so that the holy race Israel has mixed itself with the peoples of the lands. And in this faithlessness, the hand of the officials and the chief men has been foremost. Can you imagine what is going on in Ezra's head at this point? We've been given blessings. The hand of God has been on us all the way. He's protected us on this 4-month journey. We've got the men in the temple. We've been given huge amounts. God's protected us. And now you're telling me that many of the leaders couldn't keep their eyes and their hands off the women of this country. Gee, thanks. Ezra's response in verse 3, "As soon as I heard this, I tore my garment and my cloak and pulled hair from my head and beard and sat appalled." Now, I know what it's like to have one hair pulled out. It is painful sometimes, isn't it? It's just like, oh, that was the wrong place. Can you imagine Ezra just learning all these things? And he goes, rip, pulls bits of hair out of his beard. And it's just, what? He sits there until evening, utterly appalled. Utterly appalled. And then he goes before God. Notice what he doesn't do. He doesn't instantly go to the people who caused it. He doesn't. He sits there appalled and crying and weeping before God. I don't know whether for him it would have been like, I can't go to them yet. I can't actually just go and see them and just... My first reaction is, I'm going to punch somebody just for the sake of it. I'll just punch somebody and then I'll go to God. It's like, no, he went to God first. And he sits there and he just pours himself out before God. So this is what it says in verses 6 to 15 of chapter 9. So this is from the ESV version. Oh my God, I am ashamed and blush to lift my face to you, my God. For our iniquities have risen higher than our heads, and our guilt has mounted up to the heavens. From the days of our fathers to this day, we have been in great guilt. And for our iniquities, we, our kings and our priests, have been given into the hand of the kings of this land. We've been put to the sword. We've been in captivity. We've been robbed and we've been put to utter shame as it is today. But now, For a brief moment, favor has been shown to us by the Lord our God. To leave us a remnant and to give us a secure hold within his holy place, that our God may brighten our eyes and grant us a little reviving in our slavery. For we are slaves, yet our God has not forsaken us in our slavery, but has extended to us his steadfast love before the kings of Persia, to grant some reviving, to set up the house of our God, to repair the ruins, and to give us protection in Judea and Jerusalem. And now, oh our God, what should we say after this? For we have forsaken your commandments, which you commanded by your servants the prophets, saying, the land you're entering, to take possession of it, is a land impure with the impurity of the peoples of the lands, and with their abominations, that they have filled it from end to end with their uncleanness. Therefore, God says, because of that, do not give your daughters to their sons, neither take their daughters for your sons, and never seek their peace or prosperity, that you may be strong and eat the good of the land and leave it for an inheritance to your children forever. And after all that has come upon us for our evil deeds and for our great guilt, seeing that you, our God, have punished us less than our iniquities deserved, and has given us a remnant as this, shall we break your commandments again and intermarry with the peoples who practice these abominations? Would you not be angry with us until you consumed us, so that there should be no remnant, nor any to escape? O Lord, the God of Israel, you are just. For we are left a remnant that has escaped as it is today. Behold, we are before you in our guilt, for none can stand before you because of this. Can you feel the cry of his heart? Can you feel what he's pouring out? He says it as it is. When he talks about the remnant, it's the remnant from all those who came out of Egypt. There was thousands who came out of them. But then over years, people were just taking them away. So there was this remnant. Really, you could say there was about 1,800 men of the thousands that came out of Egypt. There's a remnant. And he gets to the point of even telling God, you, God, have got every right to wipe us off the face of the earth. We have been unfaithful. We did what you told us not to do. I think it is such a powerful prayer, that, because it's a heartfelt one. And he's just before God. It's such a powerful prayer of repentance, but it is a prayer of hope. In there is hope. But also notice that Ezra associates with the people. He includes himself in this. So not as a teacher, not as a prophet, not as, well, I'm higher than them. He associates himself with this people. He includes himself. He says things like this. He comes before God and he says things like, our iniquities, our guilt, our great guilt, our evil deeds. We have forsaken God. We have broken his commands. You, God, would be right to be angry with us. You would be right to forsake us so that this remnant dies out. God, we've sinned. We've messed up again. God, you've got every right. Ezra puts himself right at the alongside his fellow people. But then, as I said, in this little, in this prayer, there is confession. Ezra reminds God of who he is, though. He also reminds God of who he is and what he has done for his people. If you go back to verses 8 and 9, he says, but now, in the midst of all this, in the midst of the trials and tribulations, he says that now, for a brief moment, favor has been shown from God to us. He's left us a remnant, a small group of people. He's left a remnant to give us a secure hold within this holy place, his temple. And I love this bit. He says, we've been given a remnant so that God may brighten our eyes. I love that. He's just like, we've got this because for everything we've been gone through and the pain, the suffering, we've gone through it all, and God's given us this remnant so that God can brighten our eyes with favor. He is to grant us a little reviving from our slavery. We were slaves. You get into that pattern of slavery, and Ezra's saying, we've got this opportunity. Let's take it. Let's revive Israel. We were slaves, yet our God has not forsaken us, even in slavery. He has extended to us his steadfast love before the kings of Persia, before the kings of Egypt, before the kings of all of that lot. He has shown us favor, and he's given us a chance to be revived. He has extended his steadfast love to us, so that we can set up the house of God, to repair its ruins, and to give us protection in Judea and Jerusalem. And part of verse 13, and it says, seeing that you, our God, have punished us less than we deserve. In the turmoil, I've just found out what's going on with my people, he goes, God, you've given us a way out. You've given us a chance. What we deserve is to be punished. But you have given us righteousness. You've given us a blessing. Ezra comes before God weeping for the sin of Israel, but he also remembers God's great love and faithfulness and how he has led them through. Faithfulness in keeping that small remnant of people. Last week, Estelle mentioned that the reigning monarchs, a couple of the reigning monarchs in the UK, when there was something big going to happen to them, they were asked for a time of prayer and fasting. And Karen's mentioned it already this morning, when they were facing certain enemies. And again, on Wednesday night, we're giving that chance. We're giving that chance to join together, to come together in prayer, to remember what God has done, to remember God's faithfulness to each and every one of us. And we can share in that. You know, if you look at us, really, if you look at us, we're a remnant. WFC, I mean, from the early days, I'm early days, I don't mean to just directly look at you, Elaine, but from the early days, and Mick probably, from what the church was, which was, you know, young kids running and screaming everywhere and this, that, and the other. But if you look at us now, you could probably say we're a remnant. We're a remnant of what we were. But God has been faithful to this church. And he loves this church. His hand is on Weymouth Family Church. And that's a time to come together and remember that favour. As we move into chapter 10, we find that Ezra is still making confession. But also alongside him, a great assembly of men, women, and children have joined him in weeping over the sin of Israel. What can be done, if anything? What can we do? So from verse 2, and Shechaniah addressed Ezra. We've broken faith with our God and have married foreign women from the peoples of the land. But even now, there is hope for Israel in spite of this. Therefore, let us make a covenant with our God to put away all these wives and their children, according to the counsel of my Lord and of those who tremble at the commandment of God. And let it be done according to the law. Arise, he's speaking to Ezra now. He says, arise, for it is your task. We are with you. Be strong and do it. Then Ezra rose and made the leading priests and the Levites and all Israel take an oath that they would do as had been said. So they took the oath. They took action. They saw their sin. They took action and did something about it. If you can take time to read chapter 10, you'll see what the action they took. But it also shows, I like this in verse 9, it says, it also shows a bit of compassion on behalf of Ezra. So the people gathered and were sitting in the square. They were trembling not only because of the great sin that they had committed, but also because it was throwing it down with rain. You know, there's sometimes that you just put in a little sentence. Just like, we're here, God, we're in front of you, we're bowing down, we've realized our sin, and we're trembling, but it's lashing it down with rain as well. So, sorry? Yeah. So it's just like, well, it's lashing it down with rain. So it's just like, we can't stay here because we might drown or something or whatever, but we're all going to catch flu and diphtheria and pneumonia and all the wonderful things that people have. Nice one, Ezra. So then in the following verses, just read through it. The following verses say that it took about 3 months to get through all the paperwork, but it was done. They did something about their sin. Now, side note, when it says they put away all their wives and children, it didn't mean they put them away. All right, you lot over there. That's just like, no, what it means is that it took a long time because under the law of Moses, when you were divorcing your wife, you had to sign a piece of paper so that it gave them protection. So they weren't just abandoned, but they were divorced. So that's why it took a long time. All right, so it couldn't be done in 3 days like some people wanted it to be done, but it did take a long time. But the main thing is, it was done. The book finishes with a list of those who'd broken the law by marrying foreign women. How about this? If God said, look, amongst you lot, us lot, there's sin. But I'm also going to name you. They're in the Bible forever. They're there, aren't they? It's like they've been there for years already. It's like, fancy being named. Fancy being called out. These are the people who... Now, I think there was many more, but I think that was the people who was in the temple. because it does say that they went on to the provinces and the areas where all these people came from. So I think there was many more, but it's a bit shocking when you get named, isn't it, in the Bible for marrying foreign women. Anyhow, so that's how it finishes. That's how Ezra finishes. So, what about us? What do we gain from this? You may be sat there and you're thinking, well, nothing really. I'm all right. So I want to give you just a few little things, take away. First one goes back to chapter 9, verse 1. Don't give anyone any reason to tell on you. Remember, the officials came up and said, hey, by the way, all your priests and your Levites and those who are in authority, guess what? Don't give them an instant to say they're doing this. Fancy if somebody came up to Tony and said, hey, you know that Trevor that you allowed to preach? Do you know between Sunday and Sunday he's doing that? Oh, he's doing that. And not to mention the other thing that he's doing, but I'm going to mention it anyhow. And wouldn't it be refreshing if Tony turned round and said, yes, I know. Wouldn't it be interesting if Mick said, yes, I know? Wouldn't it be interesting if Elaine said, yeah, I know? Because he came to me, he confessed his sins. We're praying through it, and as a church and as a family, we're working it through with him. Wouldn't that make a difference to people outside? Be quick to confess your sins. Don't hold on to them. There is forgiveness. Remember what Ezra prays in part of 13. Seeing that you, our God, have punished us far less than we deserve. Our sins are forgiven because of what Christ did on the cross for us. Our punishment has been taken because of what Christ did on the cross for us. Next one was that separate yourself from the world. Again, see verse 1 of chapter 9. Romans 12, verse 2 says, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the renewal of your mind, that by testing you may discern what is the will of God, what is the good and acceptable and perfect will of God. The men of Israel took their hearts and their minds and their eyes away from God, and they looked around them and said, I want some of that. The that, in this case, turned out to be women. Now, you're not that, it's all right. I'm not saying that's it. But that's what they did. They took their minds and their eyes off what God had done with them. He said, oh, we want some of that. We want some of that. He said, oh, hang on a minute. You're looking at the wrong things. Because you've intermarried with the people who are worshipping false gods, who are worshipping false idols. Why? You know, we could have false idols. We could be worshipping things in our own lives. You know, for you, it could be your money, it could be your status, it could be your work, and you're looking at people out there and going, I want some of that. That's what I want. It's going, really? We're looking at the world and we're thinking, my status matters. My money matters. We need to bring our whole lives in front of God and say, God, would you transform my thinking? Would you start again with me and refocus my eyes on you? And that leads into this one. Put God back where he belongs, front and center. Remind yourself who it is who's brought you through certain situations. Remind yourself who it is who's led you when it's been difficult. Remind you who it is who's carried you when things have been difficult. It was a drastic measure for the men and the women. For the men. They just went, all right, girls, sorry about this, sorry, women. Got to separate myself from you. Because you're leading me astray. You're leading me away from God. Drastic measures sometimes. It was a necessary move in order to put God back where he belongs. Front and center. Now, I'm not suggesting, men, listen, men, I'm not suggesting you get rid of your wives. And I'm not suggesting you get rid of your children either. And I'm not suggesting you get rid of your pets either. But there's times when, and I believe I've gone through some of this myself, that we elevate people, we elevate animals higher than we reckon that we go to God. And I may have said this before, so I was thinking about it. I knew a lady who, just hear me out on this, I knew a lady who, whenever a pet died, she would have it cremated and then put it in a little box, the ashes in a little box, because they're not big, are they? I mean, unless you've got an elephant, but so put it in a little box. And she's got all these little boxes of the animals that she's ever kept. And it's almost like she's made a shrine of, well, that's what I remember. And it's like you're taking your eyes off God. You know, there may be things in our lives we might just need to get rid of. There may be things where we just stop elevating pets above people. But it's just time to put things in the right perspective. Put God first. We may need to get rid of things from our homes, things that have been holding on to because it's been passed down from great Auntie Nellie who passed it down, and we've got to keep it. And it's just like, all right then, really? So we put things and we treat them as little gods rather than worshipping the God that really, really knows us and really, really wants us to be part of him, his creation. He wants us to be part of his kingdom out there. No little gods. No elevating people. It doesn't matter what it is, but if it is in the way of God, is it time you have a rethink and put God back up? So, if you're feeling a little bit battered at this point, if you feel like I've left you out in the rain, heaped a load of stuff on you, as we come to the end of Ezra, let me build you up with this and remind you of who you are. 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9. 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 9. You are a chosen race. Now, you are a chosen race. You are a royal priesthood. You are a holy nation. You are a people called out of slavery for his possession, that you may proclaim the excellencies of him who called you out of darkness into his marvelous light. That's who you are. That's who we are. No longer slaves, we're free. No longer following little gods. We've got a God who knows you personally. We've got a God who sent his Son to die for you. We've got Jesus who hung on that cross so that we could have perfect freedom. So, don't. Don't. Just realize who you are as we go into, we're in February already. As we go through this year, remember who you are. It may take the rest of our lives to get there. But like Ezra, we will be blessed. The hand of God is on us. The God will be with us. He will protect us. And he will provide for us.